Hello. How's it going, folks? I tried to do this last night and I ended up being extremely tired and extremely salty. And I ended up putting out a good 8 minutes of just me being like, I don't know why I fucking hate everybody. It's just fucking I'm not like that. I don't want to subject you guys to this podcast being me just going off the rails. I know that this is a lot of me just kind of externalizing problems and essentially yelling into the void to try and calm myself down. But I do kind of want to provide you guys with a little bit of a maybe an opinion, like an op-ed, if you will, about movies. So I don't want to subject you to that. So this might be hopefully a little bit better, but I got a good movie. That I got lined up today. I'm not entirely sure. Well, I have one that I'm interested in watching, and this is back to back too. So this normally doesn't happen. I normally find one that I really want to watch, and then it disappoints me, and then I watch a shitty one that makes me even madder, or I just end up watching something that I like or have already seen. But the last one was pretty good. Fear and Loathing in Aspen was pretty good. And I do enjoy a good horror movie. So I was on Hulu and somebody recommended this movie called Carnage Park. And I forget where it was recommended to me. I'm pretty sure it was one of my film school buddies, but I could be mistook. Came out a couple of years ago, 2016. And all I know is that it's about a serial killer and it's set in the desert. But it kind of gives you a very loose framework of an environment to set up a thriller, a slasher kind of pursuit horror film, I guess would be a good way of putting it, where it's most horror films, they are being pursued by a killer or something, but there's some that the pursuit is more what the focus of the film is. So it kind of seems like they're giving you the framework for that. But I do like the ambiguity of it. I like that I like that the way that it's set up is just kind of there's a killer on the loose. And these people are stuck in the desert in a very isolated location, and it's that's all I needed to get sold on it. So I'm pretty excited about this one. I don't really know if I've talked too much about horror. Horror's not my favorite genre. I'm just there's so much real shit you could watch these days with the internet that it far surpasses anything that a movie could I've been watching a lot of this dude named Spooky Rice on YouTube. He's this black dude that breaks down horror movies and just kind of grotesque, morbid movies, and gives you the most disturbing part and then the most lighthearted part, or the part that he enjoyed the most. And I really like him. He condenses everything into a good 12 to 15 minute package and gives you the bulk of the plot. So if I've covered something here, and it was kind of underwhelming, I'm sure that somewhere Spooky Rice has it covered. But I just horror is one of those things where it's I enjoy horror. I very much do enjoy horror. I enjoy a very cerebral film that Hereditary. That was a good one. Hereditary, it's not an outright horror film. It's not a slasher film, one of the big 80s franchise movie horror films that you were expecting. Not necessarily jump scares, but certainly a certain amount of gore and violence and paranoia and all these a problem that needs to be resolved that doesn't really have a logical way of it doesn't have just a straightforward way of all right, we kill the killer and he's dead. It's Jason keeps coming back, or Michael Myers is still pursuing whoever. I'm a fan of those. I like John Carpenter's Halloween. I could also probably just not be a fan. I don't. It's not my least favorite, but I just if you don't take the time to actually think out and make a full-bodied film, then you end up with Rob Zombie, who I despise. Rob Zombie. Let me talk a little bit on him. I think I've already talked about him, but it's always good to try and retread what I've already talked about if I wasn't clear on something or I even addressed it yet. Rob Zombie is a decent filmmaker. I was very excited when he said that he was going to make a film about the Philadelphia Flyers in the 70s, the Broad Street Bullies era, where they were beating the shit out of every other team, not because they were good hockey players, but because they were just absolute fucking thugs, and they could, like, beat the shit out of people and intimidate the good players from, like, Canada by just having, like, brute force. They were unreal. And Rob Zombie apparently wanted to, like, tackle the fucking subject and wanted to make a film about it. And I got real excited about that. And then sure enough, he makes the Devil's Rejects 3 or some shit, like the whatever. Those films suck. I'm sorry if you enjoy Rob Zombie's work, because you probably also enjoy drinking too many Monster energy drinks, listening to Five Finger Death Punch, and have, like, on more than one occasion, judged, like, somebody by the size and cubic inches of their truck engine. I'm sorry. They're not good movies. They're gore porn. And gore porn has its purpose. Like, a lot of Japanese horror is gore porn. And there's a market for it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm better than people because I don't enjoy it. I just, like, I think Tom Savini, and, like, how much, like, Red Letter Media has talked about him, and then the research I've done on him on my own, like, because that was how I was kind of introduced to him. I've always been aware of the George Romero films, and then, like, I was like, oh, this guy, like, kind of reinvented the way that, like, like, invented a lot of gore special effects, but, like, also kind of retroactively made, like, an entire, like, market and industry out of, like, you know, gore special effects, and wrote a bunch of books on it. And it's very cool because before him, things were a little more colorful and, like, a little more theatrical, I would say, like, and not, like, in the sense of, like, you know, being like cinematic. I mean, like, like, in the sense that it looks like this was, like, a stage play, and that they just were kind of using these very rudimentary techniques to, like, express, like, a gunshot, or, you know, a knife wound or something like that. Like, the special effects were there, but they hadn't quite been actualized to the extent that they are. And Tom Savini was that, like, tipping point. He did Dawn of the Dead, and wrote a book about how, like, they were buying SpaghettiOs or paint from 3M or something like that. And then, like, what's the other guy's name? The guy that fucking worked on Taxi Driver. There's a film that's just, the guy that wrote, Paul Schrader, had a film come out yesterday, September 10th, 2021, called The Card Counter. And I'm really excited to go see that. I have some time coming up, a couple of days. I'm hoping to get to the theater to go see The Card Counter, because that looks pretty interesting. But anyway, the guy that worked on Taxi Driver did a lot of research on, like, gunshot wounds and, like, ballistics, and was actually, like, kind of grossing what's her fucking face, short hair, Jodie Foster. He's grossing Jodie Foster out because he was explaining, like, you could pick apart a styrofoam cup and put it into the squib round, and you know, put an air compressor under it so the squib goes off. That looks like the gunshot, and then you have a tube filled with compressed air that you fill with, like, you know, red dye and corn syrup, and then you put little bits of styrofoam in there, and they're like, well, she's like, well, what's that for? He's like, it looks like little chunks of skull, so that when you, like, you do the effect, there's, like, some, like, splatter matter on the back of the wall. Just neat shit like that. And it was, like, all kind of, like, around, like, Tom Savini. So I'm I like the subject of, like, horror, and I like the subject of, like, the gore stuff, but the gore porn, like, especially the Rob Zombie stuff, where there is no substance, it's all just, like, let's give a very, like, loose situation, you know, so that we can create an environment for some psychopaths to enact horrific things. And it's not, like, well thought out like Eli Roth either. It's just kind of oversimplifying it, gore porn. But I'm going to get off the subject of that. I'm excited for Carnage Park. I really am interested. I don't know anybody that's in this film, and I've just heard good things from friends that I've, that I went to film school with. So I'm kind of excited to see this. I don't really watch too much horror, or the horror I do I've already seen. So treading new ground sounds like fun. So without further ado, we were watching Carnage Park. I need to figure out how to put a boo button on this because this is definitely not getting the round of applause. Holy fucking shit, that was so dumb. Oh, man. All right. So we need to collectively, as like a film viewing society, because America does have a lot of potential to make some very interesting films. We need to stop letting anybody with an aunt or a cousin or the son of somebody that works in Hollywood make movies just because they're related to people. I have no idea if that's even accurate to like what happened that made this movie happen, but this was bad. And like this was from start to finish probably the worst film I've watched while doing this podcast. Carnage Park 2016. I don't even know where to fucking begin. This seems my speculation here. And this is, there's not very much to offer on Wikipedia about this because it was, a very bad film. It got pretty bad, reviews. I think the reason I was told to watch it was like, yeah, this is really bad. And I just misconstrued it as like, this is really good, or I was misremembering. I'm not entirely sure how this happened, but that was I'll give you one of these. Not even for me this time. It's not even my bad joke or me misspeaking or saying something stupid. This was deliberately bad. I think that it's one of those things where somebody's son had an idea for a film and then they knew somebody that was a producer, knew someone that was a director, and they were like, well, yeah, like you wrote the movie. You should give it a crack. Like, we could probably get it a budget. This film had a $1.5 million fucking budget. Somebody looked at this fucking script and was like, yeah, we could put 19 years income for like your average American into this, and we're gonna sell this. Like, I don't know. This might be like a chicken or the egg thing. This might be like the producers where like the studio needed to like write off something as like a net loss because it's like a flop for like tax purposes, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you can totally try to remake The Hills Have Eyes," but have no like comprehension of storytelling. So it starts off kind of neat. It starts off in a way where you get like a little bit of a Tarantino thing going on. It's like this motif that is never followed through upon. You get two bank robbers that kind of fuck up a bank robbery. I don't want to say fuck up. They just turn a bank robbery into a kidnapping and decide that they're gonna rob a bank and try and get a bunch of money, which they were talking about farm documents, and instead ended up with a briefcase full of cash. So I don't know where the consistency is there. I'm not going to try and think too hard about it because this film is fucking stupid, and the more I think about it, the more it's going to hurt my brain. But anyway, so they also take a girl, and the girl is there at the bank that the guys end up robbing, trying to advocate for a loan so that she can save her farm because her dad's sick. And I guess the dad had rights to farm on land that he didn't own, but because it's a handshake agreement, they had like no collateral in the eyes of the bank. Like their land wasn't theirs, so they were going to lose their farm and in turn not be able to generate income. So like that is probably the most complex part of this. And like it's not a bad premise. Like, it's not a terrible premise. It's very poorly acted. Everything that needs to be said is not only said, but it's kind of like repeated. There, like, there's a lot of either dialogue or, in the case of the sheriff, monologue, or I guess the girl as well, Vivian. I don't fucking, yeah, whatever. Where they're just kind of like talking to themselves and kind of like expositioning their emotions, but like in turn kind of dictating like not only the way they feel, but like the way that their character is going to continue behaving or processing what they're going through. So yeah, you got this like cool premise. Like, yeah, these dudes go to a bank to rob it, presumably to get rid of these farming debts, and you're like, okay, that's kind of neat. They're going to do like kind of a Robin Hood thing, like steal from the rich and like eradicate all of the debt that was accrued by these farmers so that they can continue to persist. But ultimately what you are presented with was that they ended up just robbing the bank and then kidnapping the chick. And then in the pursuit, somehow one of the dudes gets shot. I forget how exactly, but the dude ends up shot somehow. While they're in a police chase, and they pull off onto the side of the road, and the guy that gets shot ultimately dies. The chick that is kidnapped is solicited to help dispose of the body, and then she gets back in. The guy drives for a little bit longer. She ends up pulling a knife on him and tries to stab him. He kind of gets the best of the situation, handcuffs her to the steering wheel, and then a lone sniper comes out of the woodwork and blows his fucking lid off. And that's about where and this is maybe the first 10 minutes of the film, and it's told in like a way where it is kind of like out of order. Like you see the pursuit and the guy, pulling the chick out of the trunk before you realize like, oh, there was like clearly they're fleeing from a bank robbery, but like the bank robbery is exposed, in hindsight. It's kind of done where it's like the story, that first part of the narrative is presented after the fact in kind of a Quentin Tarantino way. So I was like, I had a little bit of optimism for it. Like, I was hoping that maybe that film like motif would continue and persist throughout, where like maybe this chick has something to do with the sniper guy, maybe not. But no, they just hit it right on the fucking nose, and then it turns into this kind of cat and mouse game of chick going further and further into the depths of this dude's insanity, which is just a really, really crude jump scare, over the top, shocking ripoff of The Hills Have Eyes. And that's where it fell flat for me. So like the first 15 minutes were all right, but then everything that followed suit, it was like you set up like what could have potentially been a really unique and interesting indie film, but you just decided to go with gore porn because it's cheaper. It doesn't require much thought. One of the people that wrote a review of this film said it will do anything to try and evoke something out of you and still falls flat. And I'm like, yeah, that's spot the fuck on. I might be misquoting that, but probably misquoting that. What am I fucking saying? But yeah, it is trying way too hard to be way too many fucking things. Now, here's how you fix this movie. It doesn't need to be a feature. And I think I've advocated this before, but a feature film doesn't have to be 90 minutes. It doesn't even have to be 100 minutes. Fucking now I earned that one. Fucking good job, Joe. An hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. Nah, it doesn't need to be any of that. It could be like 65 minutes and still be an effective film. I think I've often quoted, that Todd Phillips' film hated the G.G. Allen story. It's only 45 minutes long, but that's probably the most compelling piece of documentary like filmmaking that you will ever watch. Not that it's a particularly good film or the subject matter is that intriguing. It's just it is a compelling film. It does the job in a nice tight 45 minutes. why do films like this have to be an hour and 20? Why do they have to be an hour and 30? Why do they have to be 2 hours sometimes? I don't understand this. This is this guy, the director. I looked it up. He's some nobody, some fucking Cali long-haired fuck that looks like he just probably is either the best blowjob giver, the purveyor of Hummers in Hollywood right now, or not even Hollywood, the indie circuit. So I'm assuming this was shot in like Sacramento, California or something. Or like he must either like have sucked the right dick or he's related to somebody, because I have no fucking idea how somebody looked at the script and went, yeah, that's good. Oh, let's fucking do that. Let's go full steam ahead. You have 15 minutes of a pretty good movie. You have the framework for a good movie, but you don't need to write the rest of it. You know, in fact, what we're going to do is we're just going to take you out to an old abandoned mine, and then we're going to have for 30 straight minutes this chick just running around and shooting errantly at anything that fucking moves, regardless of if it's trying to help her or hurt her. And regardless of what it is, she's never going to get closure on it. And you're just gonna see this like myriad of like just abysmal fucking generic horror backdrops, or like I normally, like, after working in the film industry, I kind of understand how like set design works, where they just try to make things in the frame more interesting. And I have never seen like a set designer try so hard to make the frame look more interesting and authentic, and then just the acting. Because the actors visibly did not care. The editor fucking didn't care, clearly, because they edited this in a way where it's blatantly apparent that they were working with not very much. And I think after that first like initial 15 minutes, we're like, yeah, well, where's the rest of it? Oh, this is it? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stretch this out as long as I can, but like there's nothing of substance here. Maybe a couple title cards will help it. Like, this is kind of one of those things where I have the clarity of like having to make and sit through other people's student films as because I went to college for film, and I've experienced people that have no idea of what they're trying to do. And when they do it well, like they're just like, hey, we tried something different. I didn't know how the outcome was going to be, but like I totally understand like that this is kind of weird, but I had fun making it, and like here's what I had fun doing. And you can kind of see the gratification from trying something new. That shines through. This, on the other hand, was just like, I really liked like 9 other fucking horror movies. I'm going to make a horror movie. And then you come up with a decent premise. Like this dude probably, like, and I say this like all the fucking time, like all these artist types, they probably, like this dude was probably in the bank one day, and he just goes like, I let my imagination run wild. What if it would, what if there was these robbers, and the robbers try to rob the bank that I'm in right now, and this other guy, ends up like quelling the robbers. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Like, and then it just like goes off the fucking rails from there. But people are willing to throw money at it because like YouTube and Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime are so desperate for content that they will literally throw anything on there if it has a running length of like 90 minutes, because it's not that they care about the quality of like what you're watching or like putting classics on their platform. They just want you to stay on the platform because they know that the longer you're on their platform, the more money they're able to generate off of you watching the movies. So the quality is just dog shit. Now, if you had to like sit there and try and like argue and advocate from the inverse that like, no, this film deserves to be on there because it's doing its thing, I can't even really see that. It's a movie that is about a deranged serial killer who stumbles upon a fucked up situation, but none of that is explained in a coherent way where you feel satisfied with where the film ends up. This chick had nothing to do with the first part other than that she was an innocent bystander that got kidnapped. Then is still an innocent bystander that's thrust into this completely different situation with all of these that like every fucking character, including the what you I guess is supposed to be the protagonist, the chick, and the antagonist, which is the killer guy, they're disposable. They're completely disposable. You have no, other than that she's trying to be a good person and keep her father's farm, and that this dude is like, I guess they're trying to give him a backstory like he's some kind of fucked up veteran based upon like all the, you know, the ham radio and like the M1A with the scope, and like there's like a Vietnam flashback kind of, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to be him or his brother. Like, it's so muddled and stupid that you're like, I don't care about any of these people. And then they just keep peppering in more and more disposable characters. Like the guy with the bear trap that she gives water to. What the fuck was the point of that? And like, also, if there's just like a minefield of bear traps, why didn't she get hit by one of them? Why aren't there more people that got hit by the bear traps? Why is there only this like one isolated incident? It's like they created all of these sets and situations for the characters to kind of, but like I feel like if you were to look at this without knowing that this was deliberate, you would have just been like, oh, did they just like make the sets and then not give them the script? But like clearly the sets had to be made based upon what was written in the script. So like, I guess it's so fucking confusing, and it's like hurting my fucking brain. Like, at least with whatever that first film I reviewed that Camille recommended, fucking, it's not Gravity, it's whatever, Stowaway. At least with Stowaway, it was like done in a way where like the deliberate nature of it was kind of supposed to be like, you know, like a little bit cheesy, but at the same time, it's trying to get this, like, it's got a message. It's just kind of like it falls flat. Whereas this, the message is non-existent. It just falls flat regardless because there is so little going on. You're not empathetically motivated. You're not logically motivated. If you like horror gore that's dialed back because they probably didn't have enough budget for it to be like a high end. Like, I mean, it's not really hard to make gunshot effects or like, you know, you could do that shit relatively cheap, but they kind of blew their load like right off the fucking bat when the dude is like knocking on the car window and the sniper guy picks him off and his fucking brain explodes all over the window. And then she's dealing with a mannequin with like a caved in face or like a blown out face or whatever. I think like 90% of the production went into just like set design, and then like they didn't have a rewrite or nothing to help make this film make sense. I don't know how the hell this thing got made. I'm glad that it's so fucking deeply buried on Hulu that hopefully nobody has to watch this besides me. But it's not good. It's not good. I was excited going into this film too because I was like, I do like horror. I do think that horror is an interesting topic. But horror has just become this bastion of autistic kids that listen to too much Slipknot, like having free range to be artsy and explore these like sadistic things that, yeah, if you're into that, like at a very like subjective personal level, if you're like into torture porn, then yeah, I guess this is a good movie, but this isn't even good at that. It's not like, it's just dumb. And I don't know how many times I could just repeat, like I sound like a broken record. I got nothing of substance from this. Like I was like planning on trying to explain, like justify like how the end kind of falls flat, but like it begins so well. Like it just, the last 40 minutes of this film completely robbed me of any fucking ambition to not only like contextualize and explain and try and, you know, hopefully find some positives in this film, but it also like robs me of my ambition to if this is what qualifies as cinema now, I am so happy that I'm not in the film industry anymore. I really hate that these things get made. There are so many good ideas out there. I'm not even talking about my own ideas. I'm talking about like other people's fucking ideas. People that are way more capable than whoever this fucking dipshit was that wrote and directed this movie. there's so many more capable people out there with better ideas than this shit, and this is what they choose to put on streaming platforms. So not to sound too pessimistic and defeated, but don't watch Carnage Park unless you really are interested in watching a pointless movie. But this is one of those ones where it's like, yeah, you wonder why I don't watch many movies that I don't research and shit. This is a good example of it. But at the same time, I got to review a movie today, and now I got to go to work. But hopefully I'll do a little more research and find something better for the next one. So thank you for listening. Don't watch Carnage Park. Maybe go buy a gun. I don't fucking know.